Okay, it's Tuesday, October 27th at 6:02 p.m. Calling to order the Recreation Commission meeting pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Southborough Recreation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Southborough's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so by finding instructions on the Southborough website. No in-person attendance or members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite our best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. All right. So first, did you guys get a chance to read through the meeting minutes from October 5th so we can just approve them?
Yes.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
I said.
Okay, and then roll call vote.
Dumont,
Well,
yes.
yes.
Dave Nixon, yes.
All right. Okay. So Tim, do you want to kind of kick it off or?
Yeah, I guess so. So I know we've been talking about doing this meeting for a little while, but I think given where, it's been about, a year and a half since I've been here, I think given how much we've gotten completed and how much is on the brink of being completed, given from what I was, assigned to as soon as I came in, specifically when it came to kind of capital and the projects that were on the table, I just thought it may be a good idea to kind of talk openly about, some of the things that we've been tossing around here in the office. Maybe review a little bit of what we've done, just for public's sake. But I wanted to kind of toss around some stuff that we've been talking about in the office of, some goals that we've been looking at, that we've been talking a lot about recently, given the, additional time we've had together, either in the office or just on calls with one another being remote, and kind of get a sense from you all, as my advisors, on, what anything that you may be looking at, Kristen, if there's anything master plan wise that we could be looking at, and kind of go from there. Maybe come up, maybe not, a strict schedule tonight, but maybe put some things on the table for us to start spacing out over the course of, the next 6 to 8 months, to start attacking, whether it just be operational stuff within our department or, continuing to look at the facility master plan and the town master plan, open space rec plan, things of that nature. So I was, going over it today, and I just figured I'd list out what we've done kind of improvement wise to date, since, July 2019, when I came in, it was kind of fun to kind of go back and kind of look at what we were trying to do and what we were able to do. So in that regard, facility wise, so since July, we've finished the Trotter Track project. We've finished the DePetrie Field project. We had the surprise project at the Townhouse Playground, but we got that done. We have, in this building, kind of revamped it, so we added 2 more program rooms. And then as it currently sits, we got the Neary tennis courts, the Mooney baseball field, lights, both those projects in progress in front of the board now. And then DePetrie Field, not DePetrie, Calander Field, again, going to town meeting with CPC funding. That's actually being heard tonight by the Board of Selectmen, starting at 6:30. They said capital approved it unanimously with support at their last capital planning meeting. But selectmen are going to put their approval on it tonight, hopefully. Mark Purple said that if they need me to speak, he'll just shoot me a text. So I may have to jump off if something comes up, but I don't plan on it, as the selectmen were in favor of it last go round, as was CPC, and the additional work that they wanted, we provided with the additional study. So anyways, so I'm not worried about that. But anyways, so we have those three left on, or being taken off the list. So capital wise and facility wise, I think we've made some pretty significant strides to get that done, and some facility improvements. Operationally, our online presence, I think, has increased with the introduction of our new website, the updated registration process. Our numbers continue to climb with households and people utilizing it. Our program, when we were in pre-COVID times, our program output was very, very high. We took that data-based approach that we talked about when we first started, and it paid off. Making sure we were offering programs on the days that people wanted, and we were saving money and saving time on the days people weren't interested. So, that was working out really well. We streamlined processes in house when it came to billing and payroll. That was in response to the audit that was done of July of last year that we're still working with accounting on, but we're doing so seamlessly to meet all the recommendations within that audit. And then what else did we do? Kind of foster the relationship with the Friends group, and kind of put down our clear lines of responsibilities and who's doing what as it comes to events like the Gobble Wobble and Halloween party, which are the big ones. And then, their support with Summer Nights and Heritage Day and our big ones. And then really the last one I put down was foster the relationships that we have here with the other human services in town. So, we spent, especially during COVID, and when we were, working at home and we were on shutdown, working with the senior center, working with the library, youth and family, helping them with their needs, and sharing our resources to ensure that we can work together and help them advance what they're looking to do. And I think that's on full display now with how our registration software is being used with the library pretty flawlessly, as well as youth and family, and even the Friends with the Gobble Wobble, being able to work that out and save money on both sides. And in the same token, kind of, I think, repairing relationships with St. Mark's and Fay, and really building a positive relationship there when it came to facility sharing and equipment sharing, like we've been doing, and really bouncing ideas and conversations off one another. So, those were the highlights for me over the past year and a half, that I think we really made strides on. And that was really, I remember when I got here, I had a whiteboard with a lot of stuff on it, and that was pretty much everything that was on it. So that kind of brings it back full circle to what I was saying to start, is that I think it's time we start setting new things in sight, new goals. Pick your guys' brains at what you think needs some attention, and I can give you what I think needs attention, and maybe come up with a common ground to get things rolling. Any comments?
So it's Kristen. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I had to block out outside noise. In terms of the master plan committee, I had the opportunity to catch up with a member offline, just ourselves. Judith was extremely helpful. She kind of brought me up to speed on what they've done to date, how they went about doing it. And they had taken a stab at starting some recreation goals. And then we met last week, and, basically that it's good timing, right? It was perfect timing for us to be having this call. So all of their materials are online, but I did send out the link and then tonight, I think I should spend time kind of pointing you to the documents that I think should be our foundation for the, it will be the foundation, it already is, but that we need to look at and revise to align with whatever we come up with today. They're looking for a 10-year. I said we were probably looking 5-year. We shouldn't get caught up in that. or too concerned. Sam Stivers is also, part of that planning committee, and Sam's been long an advocate for some sort of indoor facility, multi-use facility, things like that. So, so they didn't do a bad job. I think they did, when I went over it, but we definitely need to look at it and amend based on, or maybe that's a good starting point. Tim, you said you had some ideas, so maybe that's the best starting point with what, you guys have been brainstorming or tossing around, and then we can perhaps go into the model that they have. And I've got the recreation portion pulled up and I can screen share. That's why my setup's been all messed up at the moment. But and we can go through that in light of what we've discussed with Tim is what I would suggest.
Okay. So a lot, admittedly, I think a lot of what we have down is not going to be, I don't think it's going to cross over. It's a lot more operational stuff in-house.
Okay, that's not bad.
So, but yeah, we could do ours first, I guess. I'll screen share so you can see my stuff too. You guys seeing this?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So I'll just run top to bottom and stop me if you want. I'm looking at my other screen, so it's not that I'm ignoring you guys. So operationally, we kind of took a look at in-house processes and then just some kind of outstanding needs that we've had. The first one is just funny. Almost at the same time, Alex and Denise both said we need a new van. So, when it comes to, I guess, big ticket items of how it, will affect us in-house is again, looking at that replacement of our oldest van. It's currently dead in the parking lot. We've jumped it a few times, but it keeps dying. So it's going to need a little work soon. But we are all on the same page that we are not going to use it to at least transport kids moving forward. It's just a safety concern. We had one program that we did use it, and it just got real sketchy, to be honest. And so we're just not comfortable with it. So if we do keep it, it's going to be for maintenance only, and kind of getting equipment from A to B. So it's just important to keep in mind that if we do the offsite programs, which we were doing pretty heavily before the shutdown, the half-day programs, and using it for supplemental transportation for the ski trips and our bigger programs so that we can get some more registration in. That's about 10 to 12 kids, 10 to 12 registrants per program that we're missing out on not having that van. So that's just a number to attach to it. But that was one that just the bigger ticket items of it. Further within house, and you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, I guess, and just that if I'm incorrect in general, we've had to make kind of on the fly changes to policies in-house, kind of knee-jerk reactions to things. COVID was a big one with refunds, but also with changing over, kind of do we give a credit? Do we give a refund? How do we want to handle this group when it comes to, rentals and things like that? So I was kind of hoping that we could, I think this kind of goes back to saying, schedule it out for a meeting, take a dive into our policies and have, voted on concrete policies in place. I think our refund policy is strong, but our refund policy was, as it stands now, was, created by me and Alex as things kind of, hit the fan, a few months back. Policies around account credits, policies around staffing and hiring, especially when it comes to, just having something in place so people know about background checks and, maybe employment, something stated about, employment length that, if you're hired one summer, this is your term before you have to, reapply or refill out paperwork, things of that nature. And that would be working with folks over at the townhouse. Coming up with, I know we're working on the field permits. I know that's still outstanding on my end. given that we're in between seasons, I admittedly kind of put that off because we had some time, but you know, maybe a more clear building use policy with South Union. You know, once we get back up, we have karate in here, we have pickleball in here, we have, you know, it's the Arts Center, so we got that crew in here. We had, you know, at the time we had pottery classes happening on the weekend. You know, I know at one point there were private rentals, not that we were doing that, but for birthday parties, things like that. But some, you know, policy regarding around the use of this building, access and egress from it, the pavilion over at Fayetteville, renting that, and, you know, what's allowed, what's not over that. Again, it's just, you know, what I know, and you guys can point me if I'm wrong, at least what we've been doing is just, you know, on the permit, we come up with our usual set of standards, you know, leave it as you found it. This gives you title. This permit entitles you to this, you know, A, B, C, D. And then the track and field, I think, could use a revamping of policies and usage policies. You know, we don't get a lot of requests for it, but at the same time, we do get a handful. St. Mark's uses it. You know, other groups in town, Boy Scout groups, Girl Scout groups, Cub Scout groups, things of that nature. And given the money that we just invested in it, I just want to be sure that, you know, there's a set group of rules outside of the rules that are posted on the signage on the actual facility. I think we need to look at access to our buildings and our fields. It kind of mirrors, you know, what we were doing with the lights down at Choate, how, you know, there were a very large amount of individuals who had access to those lights, and bringing that control back in house to ensure that, you know, or to cut down on the issues that we were having, that we've been able to do successfully with I think the exception of one night so far this whole season, which has been great. A lot of people have the combination locks for all the fields in town when it comes to the equipment, with our goals that at 9/11, with our goals down at the grass field, lacrosse, soccer, field hockey, everything like that. All the sheds in town, certain groups know the combinations. We open up a shed, next thing we know, it's full of equipment that we didn't know about. And then same with, you know, access to this building, that lockbox out front. You know, I personally don't know who has, you know, the numbers to that. I know of one group, at least, that uses it. Karate uses it consistently, which is fine. They're paid, you know, they're long-time users, but I think there's a concern, at least in our minds, of, you know, how many people actually do know that code, and may have access to that. So all in all, I'm looking for some guidance and some, I think, officially voted on, officially posted policies that are kind of hit the key points of our day to day, that we can refer to, that we can pass on to the public, in hopes to make a more streamlined approach to permitting, mainly, and hiring and things like that, and programming. So, any questions on that or comments?
My only thought was around, like, so I think also over the years, like, different rules have been added, but there hasn't been a great, like, way to share those rules publicly. And I also think that a lot of our fields in our different locations probably need them actually, like, publicly posted as well, thinking that, like, we have some random signs around town, but they don't really tell you much, or they don't necessarily reflect what the policies are.
Mm-hmm.
I know I was at another field the other day for soccer, and, like, they had amazing signage out, to really explain, like welcome you to the field, and then also state, like, their policies and use and stuff like that. So I think that could be nice to put around town as well.
So I apologize. I don't know if I felt like we talked about this, Ian, but maybe we haven't. So I updated all the signs around town, and they're going to be posted. They're printed. Let me see if I can bring them up.
Ah, gotcha.
Because I had the same, you know.
Oh,
right.
I recall some of that this summer, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
DPW has them, and I'm just waiting for them to go up.
Gotcha.
I'm just trying to remember what her name was. There we go. Yeah, so there'll be a
Oh,
little
wow.
there. Yeah,
Awesome. Yes.
That's great.
so they'll be uniformed. They'll match. They address the dogs because I know that's the biggest thing.
That is the one I hear
Um,
about.
Yeah. They're relatively the same across the board when it comes to the field. Finn School and Neary School tennis will pretty much match. Fields that didn't have signs like the Petrie and Calander will now have signs. So there's a good amount of them. So those will be. I don't know if these are finals, so don't look into the spellings of everything, but that's what they're going to look like. They're going to replace across the board all of them. So that'll be done probably before the winter hits. So I'll put that on my what we did checklist.
There you go.
So we're on the same page on that one. So all right.
In regards to access to buildings, and this might be in your facility and capital improvements, in which case, just let me know. Obviously, I think we're ADA, I would assume we're ADA compliant where we need to be. But what comes to mind is, and you got it fixed, was that one door at the South Union building. Do we have any, or do we need to assess, do we have any other needs that you're aware of? Yep. Okay.
Yep. It's in
Got
this right
Got
there.
Perfect. I have no other questions.
Yeah. I guess anything else? Or you just want me to go into that stuff?
No, I'm okay if you go on.
Yeah. I'll start with that. I think we made I think it's a hot button item right now, I think, with ADA access, as I think it should be, publicly. I think we all agree it's important. I think we made a clear effort when we did the townhouse playground to make sure that was accessible.
Mhm.
I just walked Finn this morning with Karen around the baseball fields to address some of the concerns down there, very minor, but easily fixed. But I think the best way to approach this, in my opinion, is to try to get in with the ADA committee and be present with their meetings. I know there's been a lot of talk about like a compliance study about all the facilities in town, not just rec facilities, but all the buildings. So, I would say we wait to see that, and then we could really base off our needs from there. I think any major upgrade would be supported by the town at town meetings. So I don't personally know where that stands, with the budget and what's being asked. So I think it could be a conversation with Bonnie and that committee to maybe, somewhat have a seat on it, as building does and as other departments do, DPW does, in hopes that we can address concerns, as they come up. I know Fayetteville was questioned, months and months and months ago. That was cleared up because we do have adequate access down at the lower side with the handicap parking and the access points to the playground. I know we're looking at doing a walking track, but that's more of a want versus need piece of it that I think it's important to separate when we look at everything. But yeah, like little things like Finn of, there's a curb that's blocking the walkway to go down, to grind that down. So I think it's the little things we take for granted that will be found across a lot of our facilities. But I did have that on my list, obviously, because I do think it's important.
I think maybe just the one thing to clarify there also, because I know I met with them last summer, and I know you met with them last fall as well. Or the one thing to clarify for anyone else that's watching is that it's not that any of our properties were built and not ADA compliant. It's that the laws have changed over time.
Right.
So now the ideals, some of ours, they aren't quite up to the ideal, but I don't believe, like you said, there's nothing glaring that's actually not compliant. It's just there's the sliding scale of what's required, which is actually, when you read it, not very much, but then there's the nice to have and then ideal. And I know our ADA committee would like us to be in more of the nice to have to ideal side of things. So that's where we need to get like, I agree, this assessment that they've been talking about it for over a year now would be really great to have. And then it's a conversation of, okay, where does the town want to fall as to, like, on that scale of where do we want to be? And then again, it's very expensive to get to the nice to have and the better end of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a financial, like you said, a financial aspect to being successful in that range. So capital and facility stuff that has been on my mind. Once Calander is done, outside of Lundblad, of dealing with Lundblad, pretty much all of our fields will be, I think, up to par, I think, for a good amount. And I think we can really start that schedule of rotating and taking fields offline. Oddly enough, I think we did it not on purpose. DePietri has barely been touched, to the amount that it has. I know, Kristen, your group has used it. Soccer's using it strictly for makeup games. And then later in the season, they're now on it twice a day because Calander is such a mess from all the rain we've been getting. So I think it's, I think that was the
commitment.
That was the sell, and that was the commitment.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to go back to town meeting if we don't. They'll never give us something again.
Yeah. So I think with Calander done, because when that's offline, I'm sure DePietri will be used heavily. But again, once those are all online, I see no reason why we can't start that rotation and getting a plan in place. So like Kristen just said, I think that you made a good point. That was the promise, and it's time now that we can stick to it. I want to take a look at the tennis court that used to be the skate park. I know we talked about basketball court potentially going there. We were tossed around. Tennis is very active now, I think, given COVID and given the guidelines and what is safe and what is not by state guidelines and by personal feelings of the public. So, maybe we look, do we want to just take the easy route and throw up a net and make it a tennis court? Obviously, we know pickleball is huge. We could fit 4 pickleball courts on that one court. So that's an option. We have a restriction kind of because it's during school hours, so the use of it may not be ideal. But I think we should, take a peek or start a survey. We can put together a survey for the town or something of that nature, of that, maybe even that section of town, to see what the best use, and the school, and talk to the school, the best use of that court will be. Because now it's being flooded with broken tables and things of that nature from the skateboarders coming back wanting their court back. So I'd like to take a peek at that and not leave it vacant as just a vacant spot. I want to bring back online the softball diamond at Neary. I think this goes back to things I've said multiple times, that I think we got to take care of the assets we have before we want to build more. Softball is slowly moving back into town, and I want to be sure that we have the facilities for it. And that goes for Trotter as well, getting that field back online. Because, once we are up and going, we'll have, Northborough, Southborough, we'll have the men's leagues back. And we've had a couple other interests, this season as well as past, of trying to get field time. And I think instead of duking it out with baseball, just because we know their program is so well attended, and it's a financial gain for us to be sure that they're taken care of. We have two other fields that we could offer up. So I really want to work with DPW to bring those back online. We were going to do it this season, but obviously COVID hit. So I don't want them to get past the point of no return, which I'm afraid that's where Trottier's headed, just because of how bad it is back there. And I know in the facility master plan that, there was talk of doing, changing that diamond, putting two soccer fields out there instead, getting rid of that infield. I don't know if we still think that's something to explore. I personally don't think so, but
I think
I don't want to
discussing that might be turfed. right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
But I think we've moved away from that.
I mean, because we hit a pandemic, have we moved away from wanting to pursue turf in the next 5, 10 years?
I think like the turf at Neary.
Right.
Oh, turf at Neary. I'm sorry. I was
Yeah,
thinking,
yeah.
because, okay.
I think the other concern too is that, there's been talk of what will happen to Neary, the facility in
Right.
the future as well. So
Yep.
just being mindful of not putting too much investment in that field if
Yeah.
ultimately there's going to be a repurpose of the parcel.
No, I totally agree. Sorry, I heard turf and Ryan was
Actually, yeah, I just had that conversation with Joe Kasevich yesterday, actually, because
Yeah.
he was asking about it, and I was same thought, Don, of, that's why I would rather DPW churn it up, get rid of the weeds, we could use it pretty basically, but not invest the 10 to 15 grand that we would want it to look fantastic. As long as it could be on a minimal basis, I think we'd be fine, and it would meet the need that we need. And yeah, I actually didn't put the turf on here, but it's a good conversation. I think, Don, again, you just hit it on the head of, I don't know if we want to wait opening that can of worms again, and see where we end up as a department because of the talks with us moving around town, or what happens with Neary, and
Well, I certainly, I don't know if can of worms is the right terminology, but turf needs to be on the list.
Mhm.
The time we can debate over the time. The issue that we've run into effectively is there's only so much space, right? There's only, as far as viable options are concerned, it's very limited. And so really what, the short-term turf discussion in my mind is, validating what is the potential space, right? We had lost some time, I think, last year or early this year on the reviving of another option, a little on the other side of town with Fay. But I still think we got to somehow get the measurements and the sort of understanding as to what is the art of the possible at Woodward, so that we actually have an idea of what could you even do there, because I don't think we know that for sure, and I think that informs sort of your capabilities. My daughter made it to she's 7th grade now, and so she's plays 7th, 8th grade, and they play on the 11v11s, and we've hit more towns than we've have in the different towns than we have in the past, and she hasn't played a game on grass yet this year. And so whether it's Acton Boxborough or we were just in, I can't remember the town we were just in, but we've made it to all these towns all have complexes, and they've got various size kids playing on the field. So they've got complexes where they actually have the 9v9s and the 11v11s or whatever. The town itself has an 11v11 unlit field. But we all like the fact that Woodbury has the lights, especially with sort of the angst around lights in town. So I think, to me, there should be somewhere in the plan here that we got to solve for turf. And maybe we don't know all the answers because there could be redeployment of property in town, and who knows what happens there. But I think at least in the short term, we should have an idea of what is the art of the possible at Woodward, and how would that fit. The field I was at we were at Medway. I think it was Medway on Sunday, and they have one of those softball soccer fields. So you can play soccer on it, and they've got the softball diamond there as well. So a real life example of what could possibly be possible at like a Woodward.
Yeah. I just want to add to that. I mean, I totally agree, Don. Obviously, we've invested a lot of time in this. I mean, a lot of time. If you really think about how long we've been talking about this, it goes back to our original discussions from the.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and people have invested time in it. A couple other perspectives. We're not doing the town soccer because of the social contact, and we're being cautious for personal reasons, for family reasons. But I found a group that did want to play, and it's awesome. And I hope that situation doesn't continue. But what became immediately apparent to me, being on the other side of the soccer fence kind of for a season, is that if there are any other users in the community, adult leagues or what have you, don't have access to the lights in the fall, because, and I get it. That's what, Southborough Youth Soccer, and I, as a coach, I would appreciate that, has that blocked out, for the entire week. So, it's, and again, I don't necessarily not support that, but it would be nice. Sorry, I'm mixing up two different topics. An additional field would be nice for that reason. But again, if we can at least get the turf on that field, you can extend, the times when it's wet or whatever. I rambled. I mixed 2 points I wanted to make. I'm sorry. The second point I wanted to make was that maybe we need to have a discussion, or at least make sure this is on the radar of the capital planning committee. So my point being there is, when the field's wet, we're out of luck, and because we don't want to play on DePetrie when it's wet. And I totally understand why Southborough Youth Soccer gets the lights and gets the turf field at 9/11. But again, more options might open it up to more user communities. That was the point I wanted to make. And then I wonder if we need to get this on the radar of the, I'll obviously get it on the radar of the master planning committee, but do we need to get it on the radar of the capital planning committee, so they're thinking about it as they're assessing the proposed strategy to put in front of the Board of Selectmen?
The intent is that, discussion here where we land would be shared with them as well. So
Okay.
They've already asked for our input. We just don't have a deadline yet. So that's why we're meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, because originally, I think the Neary turf project was scheduled for next year, I think, or
Yeah.
next town meeting, and that obviously wasn't going to fly because it's just with the unknowns of that building. I think there's just more layers to it. So that's
Yep.
part of this too, is that they want to know kind of what
Right.
we're looking at.
And just for context, so they're running off of a list that the previous director gave to them 4 years ago for our capital planning ideas or something like that, 4 or 5 years ago. So that's what they came to us this fall asking if we were still planning on bringing Neary forward.
Yeah.
So.
Which we all agreed, the next logical step there would be, to invest a little bit of money in proper design work, so we could provide the assurance that anyone would be looking for on the feasibility.
Yep.
And that's at Woodward, not at Neary.
Right.
Moving
'Cause-
forward, yeah.
Yeah, just because of the lights and then the uncertainty of the parcel.
So next I have is Lundblad. If, continue to look on that. I think now, I know that was under EPA review. I have no idea where that sits. So I'm going to have to work with Karen on that and see if it's really a viable project.
One consideration there is that if we are going to rotate the fields, we really need to sit down and do the math. We might need Lundblad. I know there is some thought in our head that perhaps we would not, but if we are going to start rotating fields, I think we got to just sit down and really do some analysis there and make sure.
When we initially did that planning a couple of years ago for the rotation, we needed Lundblad. It was going to be the extra overflow, but it was necessary to be able to rotate and rest the fields. So.
And I've seen it in use every time I've been over to Neary.
It gets a massive amount of use, and I think it's important to have because of that. But
Right.
I guess my concerns stem from when we were working on DePetrie, what we were digging up because of that landfill.
Yeah.
So
That's gross.
and I know that it has obvious grading issues. I mean, the hump when you're standing at one side is you probably can't even see people on the other side of the field. So I just think that now is the time. I think we do have to look at it and see what we can do. But I think my guess is we'll run into some issues with what's underneath and be limited on what we can really do to it. But it is a good overflow field. It's a good practice field. like you said, soccer's on it. We got Central Lacrosse from Worcester that's on it. Massachusetts uses it. So it's definitely getting its use, and it's, it's,
You had
it's
rugby up
really
there too, right?
Say that again?
I think you had rugby up there as well.
Rugby was up there for a little bit. They used that in the far field at Trotter. Yeah. So, yeah, no, if we lose that field, it would be, not a good thing. But I just, it's the investment versus the reward on that. So I just think we got to, I'll just start kind of pushing on that once these other ones are done, I think, because that was on the list as well. And then we just always we get people who want a dog park. And I think, we know people use the fields for their pups. And everybody always asks us where ours is. And when we tell them we don't have one, they say why. So could just be something to look at. Other spots in town, maybe repurposing what we already have.
That's where we'll have nice synergies with the master plan committee and open space. I think I mentioned the dog park. We were having just conversations about having an awareness of parcels of land that the town, would potentially be interested in acquiring if the opportunity came up for mixed usage of rec and open space, to the extent it makes sense, trails. So I think, again, that we should definitely put it out there. So if those opportunities come up, that's been put out there along with open space, who has similar goals in terms of acquiring more land and
Yep.
parcels of property.
Anything else on facilities? I don't know if that bleeds into your stuff, Kristen.
Yeah, it kind of does, because this is kind of tangible items you can move forward, right? In
Yep.
the course of a few years, whereas master plan committee is a bit broader. For example, the idea of a recreational facility. So I wouldn't expect that to be on this list. What I'm going to do is make sure, those items that aren't, to your point, very specific to your operations, but the facility ones go into logically. The facility is not the programming or kind of the administrative stuff does make it into the plan. But let me share. Well, actually, before I steal the share, does anyone else have anything they want to raise on Tim's stuff? I had one quick question, Tim. Earlier, you were mentioning when we were talking about ADA that maybe, that's a group or a committee that we'd want representation on. Are there any other committees like that come to mind where you think maybe rec should be at the table and is not, that we would want to approach?
Off the top of my head, no. I mean, CPC is a given, but we got that covered. I'll have to look at a list. There's a million of them. I just, ADA comes to mind because they reach out a lot.
The only one that I've ever thought of is, and I don't know if there is such one, but is there one for Public Works, DPW?
There is a board,
There's
isn't there, for
something.
them? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I only think of that because they, we're a fairly substantive customer of that particular organization in terms of maintenance of our properties, and then also as in some respects using them or utilizing them for projects and such. So that's really the only one that's ever sort of jumped to my mind.
Yeah, there is a planning board and there's 5 members. Okay.
And the only other item that we've talked about often in the past, and maybe, it's just for more discussion at a future meeting, but, we often talked about needing to get maybe more frequently, like the various sports leagues together, whether it be quarterly, annually, what have you, formalizing something to that extent. We've talked about it, I think, forever, but never pulled the trigger, and is there value in doing so? But maybe that's something we talk about at a future meeting.
No, I mean, I think there's tremendous value in it. I mean, I speak to them daily. I think and especially when we're organizing the season. So, at minimum, if there was kickoff meetings for the seasons, so we can all be on the same page with what they need, any questions they have.
Yeah.
It's
Because
all common sense.
What comes to mind is last year, I think it was, when we were discussing the field policies, and it was good because we had representation from lacrosse and from soccer. I think it was mostly them, and we kind of hashed out as part of the policy, well, when would it make sense for you to have it and us to have it? And they provided kind of feedback in terms of that prioritization. So, you know, just having that type of input and having them talking to each other and appreciating the needs of the other, I think is definitely good. And especially with COVID, you know, like, how are you guys handling this? How are we handling this? Like, there should be some consistency in our youth sports organizations, if anything, for the kids' purposes, and how, if we're faced with, you know, additional seasons with COVID, what are the policies that each of them are implementing, and can we have a level of consistency?
Yeah. Yeah. And Kristen, do you need me to make you a host so you can share? Is that what's going on?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was just making sure there was nothing else on your stuff.
Okay.
You disabled participant screen sharing, so you do have to.
Sure did. So am I doing your other? Your non?
You're doing the one that my non-face one.
Okay. Actually, can I just finish this because it's up on my screen? Is that
Oh
cool?
yeah, sorry. Yep, I didn't mean
Well,
to.
it's just two more things. We were always talking about doing another community event to kind of bookend the year. You know, we have, you know, it's heavy on, it's summer nights, it's Heritage Day, it's Halloween, it's Gobble Wobble. You know, it's really heavy on the end of it. Now that we have concerts in the summer, now that we're doing movies in the summer, we've now fully taken care of the summer. But we don't really have anything in the spring. So we were thinking we want to kind of introduce on a programming goal level a spring-wide community event. Denise is really, you know, really pushing on that, which is wonderful. We've floated some ideas around, you know, touch a truck, food truck events, you know, things like that. So I think we definitely want to kind of, when we end the winter and kick off the spring, you know, do something sponsored by our department to help us get out there. And then just with camp, you know, we had the big plan done last year, but we really want to introduce the improvements this year. Funny enough, we started planning camp today with Alex already to try to get our dates in mind and start reaching out to some people that we know we already need to reach out to. So, you know, October, we're already thinking about June and July of next year, but you know, make those improvements to camp. Hopefully they're impactful like we thought they were going to be, like our numbers showed they were going to be last year, and hopes we can move on from that. So those are pretty self-explanatory.
Mm-hmm. Unrelated question. How are you going to manage while Alex is out with the baby?
Oh, we'll be fine. We'll figure it out. So I'll put my programmer hat on with that. But no, that was part of the reason why we're starting early, so that she gets as much done as possible. We kind of made the decision today that we won't open registration probably until much later, just because, you know, last year we did February. Nothing's going to be in place by February or the knowledge of what things are going to look like in February. So we'll probably be looking at a May registration for next summer. But we can get the bare bones of what we need done prior to that. And, you know, the cheat sheet is that we didn't use anything we had planned last summer. So we can take what we had last summer, we can plug it into this summer and make the appropriate changes and we're coming up with multiple plans, kind of A, B, C, when it comes to time, location, indoor, outdoor, field trips, no field trips, things of that nature, just because there's so much unknown still, you know, sitting still in 2020 and in October. But I think we'll be okay. You know, we have our directors on board already. It's the usual faces, and they're ready to go already. They've dedicated and said they're in if we run, and so we have the history there, and we have the knowledge. And you know, as much as Alex planned it all last go around, you know, Denise and I were here talking it through the whole time. So we have a good knowledge of what we're looking at. So I think we'll be okay. It'll be fun. It'll be busy. It'll be fun. So,
Great.
all right. I will stop sharing this. How do I stop sharing? It stopped sharing.
Okay.
Hold on, coming your way.
Yeah, I'm telling you, my doc, it disappeared. Where are you? Is this it? Sorry, guys. I had everything up and ready to go. There we go. Okay. Share. All right. Oh. Hold on. Sorry, bear with me. I've got too many screens up on. I'm sorry, guys, just give me a second. It's for some reason it's not bringing up what I want to share because I feel like it's in a different, actually, I have no idea. I might just have to reopen it from this particular. Anyone else have anything they want to share while I'm figuring this out? I don't work on this particular computer usually, so I don't know if that's the problem. Why don't we start with the obvious one that's kind of out there and thoughts on what we'd be, because I got a couple browsers open, so I'm just starting over. What people think about when they think about a recreational facility and or a pool. Those are the two biggies kind of out there. We've talked about forever, maybe a shared space with the senior center, more indoor courts that are accessible because it's difficult with the schools and the janitorial requirements. And then the pool, which, you know, is definitely something people have brought to us before. So if we could just start conversation there and see, you know, where it ranks or what people's thoughts are. I'll try to reopen this doc and see if I can get us going. Don't all jump at once.
Yeah, I guess I'll start if I can. I wouldn't want a pool, I'll tell you that. I just don't know financially if it would be, you know, a good play on that unless we can get crafty with how we take care of it from a money perspective. I just think there's a lot that goes into a pool. But also, I actually had this conversation, I think, with Capital last year. The amount of people in town that have pools, I think there would have to be somewhat of a study.
That's
to
what
see
I was thinking, and especially like COVID, you know how many families I heard put in pools, like, or tried to put in pools. Yeah, and we have quite a few pools locally around as well.
Is that like, how common is that, Tim, in communities? Is that, you know, we talk about turf and the fact that we're one of the few that, you know, that we're playing don't have turf. Are pools in that same boat?
When it comes, I think, to the public side, yes. You know, you look at all the YMCAs, you know, they kind of blanket the state. So, you know, the access is there with the YMCAs and the camps and things of that nature. I know Brookline has a pool. I think Lexington may have one. Sudbury has one. Outside of that, off the top of my head, I don't know really anybody outside of that. But it's the YMCAs and the private clubs, and the you know, the country clubs, I think, that are the resources to a quote unquote public pool. So I think it's uncommon. Personally, I know we used to have a pool. I think that was the start of the rec department here in Southborough, from what I was reading. It's because we had a pool, but I think that's just, it could be a personal feeling with me. I would just be weary of it because of the money aspect of it.
Other thoughts?
I don't disagree. You've got the Hopkinton State Park, you got Westborough's got, I think we get passes at Westborough's Lake there. Is that on Chauncey Street?
Chauncey,
Then there is competitors. You know, you got the Westboro tennis and whatever.
swimming tennis.
Yeah.
You've also
I
got
have-
like what Hopkinton's got. What is it the YMCA that has the pool in Ashland? Right off Oregon. So there's another pool there. So yeah.
Okay. I
I
don't know
think
if we
the,
have,
I think the backyard pool was a good observation as well.
Yeah.
sorry guys, I'd done this navigation. I'll explain how this is set up. I'd done this prior to the call specifically so we wouldn't have to do this, but I do have to do it. So obviously anything I put together for the master plan committee, I will run by this group. I guess we'd probably have to take a vote on it. So there we go. So keep that in mind in timing for our next meeting. I'll have to look. I think our next master plan committee meeting is the 17th of November. So I would prefer, even if it's a quick meeting, just to approve it, to be able to take the feedback today, summarize it, and then at a minimum have a meeting before that meeting, I'll confirm the date of November 17th, to vote on it, to make sure it reflects what the majority of the commission agrees to. So just as far as procedure, is that reasonable?
Yes.
Okay, there's something, this is making me mad because this version's missing something, but let's just start here. And if I'll pause in a second and see if I can find what I'm looking for. So this was just Judith attempted to kind of boil everything down into, it has like goals, objectives, et cetera. And then if you look at it in its totality, if I were to come out, expand out, but I don't want to because I don't want to lose this. This is not the right version. But maybe let's start talking about these while I navigate. And can I freeze the screen? No, it doesn't. Oh, pause share. If I pause share, do you still see it?
I don't know.
You still see it on your screen, right? Or do you?
Yep.
Okay, great. Because I want to just pause while I'm trying to find what I want. They actually had one that had goals on it. So I'm trying to determine if I opened the wrong version. So much for my good planning. Swear to God, I really did do this. So that's following September. Oh yeah, I did have the wrong version open. I apologize. So basically, if you were to look at the top, what it does is it says like, the master plan element, the objectives, the goals, the recommendations, it just continues to break things down. And then what we need to review is the objectives and the goals. A lot of this, they carried over from, they didn't do an exact copy, but what we did in the last meeting is we looked at there was like a gap analysis in terms of what was, oh, she broke it up. That's why. There we go. That's so much better.
Hey,
All right, now we're in
Kristen, we're
business.
still frozen. Our screen. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
put you on. I froze it just so you wouldn't have to get dizzy as I navigated. So you see it breaks it down to element, objectives, goals, recommendation. They really did kind of take more of a fresh look from what I can see instead of just copying and pasting what was there from last time. And again, Sam Stivers is on the on the master plan committee. And obviously he spent a lot of times in our meetings. So I think probably had a sense of some things. What I want to do, or at least start to do, depends, I guess we'll have to see how time intensive each of these is. It's just go break down the goals, make sure we agree with each of those goals, and then get into the more, I think we covered a lot tonight, to be honest with you, with what needs to go over here. So what I'd like to do is just validate, do we agree with what's in there? Do we want to keep it? Do we want to take anything out? And then, layering in what we've already agreed to today, based on what Tim's outlined, is anything missing? And basically, that will be how we get to our final copy. There was some discussion, if we could talk a little bit about trails and to what extent we should be, obviously Trails has their own section of this, but when we think about trails and recreation and our budget and things like that, like where do they exactly fit in, and do we want to address that somehow? So let me just pause there and see, Does that approach make sense to you guys? Is there a different way that you'd propose we go about it?
That works.
Okay.
By me, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that approach.
And I mean, the goals themselves, I'll read through them. If anyone objects to one or wants to discuss one, then just jump in. Improve and maintain quality and safety of all recreational facilities, provide high quality recreation programs and activities that meet the needs of residents of diverse ages to build a stronger community, seek opportunities to expand recreational facilities, maintain strong partnerships with committees and organizations through the town, fulfill responsibility to maintain a budget that supports programming and facilities, provide ongoing communication and education to end users, and build, well, this is the biggie, right? Build an indoor community center with facilities and programs available for all interest groups and ages. I think everything that we talked about tonight fits well into the first 6 and could be aligned accordingly. So I can align those objectives to each of these goals. A lot of them will align to a couple of them, but let's talk about the last one and make sure that is something that we want to include out there. I mean, I think we all know the financial considerations, but I've got to imagine that the capital planning committee was also asked to look at this. I mean, this has been floated around for quite some time.
So I have one clarification on, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th one? Fulfill responsibility to maintain a budget that supports programming and facilities. Is that insinuating that we are self-funding or not?
Good point.
Because I think like the self-funding is a question that's been floated around for years, but it's just not, it's not possible currently. So I just want to be, I guess I'm a little leery about what that means.
But we do yeah, I mean, I think we could tighten up the wording. We do maintain a budget.
Yeah, I guess it's that supports. I just want to, I guess I'd want clarity to make sure there's an expectation that we become self-funding, fully self-funding. Or if there is, like, that's a much bigger conversation.
No, and I certainly don't get the sense that anyone in that committee is trying to slip something through, but I do see that after the fact, someone could take it out of context and it could become a problem for us. So what I'll do is take a stab at rewording that. I'll give a call to Judith as well to make sure to understand perhaps what the intent was, and is this something that's in other areas, and then work on the wording from there.
Okay.
I mean, just in general, I guess it's an interesting point. Like, what is our goal when we look at the 5-year, 10-year? Like, when we think about finances and budget and how we seek funding, is there anything different that we would do other than what Tim's done a great job of starting to do since he came here?
I think the only thing that we would think about, and we talked about this in terms of the turf field, but there would be the potential for raising funds for certain projects given their scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what I was going to say. I think a deeper dive. We don't have to get into it now. Take 9/11 for an example of making sure that, as we've had a little back and forth of what we're charging and what we pay out with the bond and everything is setting us up for success when it comes to replacement and future enhancement. And I think that goes across the board too with programs, setting up a sufficient model for programs specifically to make sure we're taking everything into account, not just the contract, which, we're doing a pretty good job at, but, once, we're absorbing, I think we're absorbing a lot more than we have in the past, and it's all the portalets around town. It's the lighting, electricity bills for the lighting. It's, we got handed the water bill for South Union today that we've never used to pay, things like that. So,
wow.
Which is, $200 a year. So it's not a big deal. But just ensuring that, we're taking as much, making sure that Denise is, because she's being paid out of revolving, that her salary is kind of tied in some way. So, yeah.
Actually, I'll hold mine. my question.
the-
till-
So the interesting thing on the, just, you mentioned the water bill, just make sure that if that's going to proliferate, then our budget is a very simple budget. It's just people costs. So if there's a need to start taking on other expenses, either because they want to better allocate the expense to the user, then there should be some commensurate budget sort of movement as well. So just,
Right.
I'd keep an eye on that. As a seasoned finance person, it's a classic maneuver to cut costs in some respects by moving them around. So just be careful.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's something that just, and maybe I'm letting too much from the past interfere with my thinking, but why the change? And is that not a conversation that should have been had to understand it? And is it global in nature? Meaning, I guess we're the ones who raise funds, so I'm trying to think of a comparative group, but there really isn't any.
Well, you don't even need to raise funds. I mean, do they charge the DPW for their water use, and do they
Yeah.
charge? And if they do, that's fantastic. I mean, that's in the world of finance, that'd be sort of like you're getting your department P&L in order, which makes a lot of sense. The utilities, the rent, the whole thing associated with the building, and I think that's a really good way of understanding the total or true cost of a particular operation.
Mhm.
So if that's the move, I can be I would be supportive of that sort of approach, provided that it's not done as a one-sided, right? You don't just move the expense and expect, there's no budget to absorb it. What you would do is you would move budget and expense so that you can now really sort of track that department level P&L.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess obviously water bill's not a big deal. Just the what else is a little concerning. Is it setting a precedent? But all right.
So
So those-
I'm sorry, I don't mean to harp on that point.
Yeah.
When you guys built Choate with the lights, was it agreed that we were paying the electrical for that?
I don't recall. We'd have to go back.
That predates me.
Yeah, that was before me as well.
So, I mean, like, that's one of the end of the year transfers that we get, is that they take out
Yeah.
electrical from our account, because facilities gets those bills, so.
But when they take it out of your account, though, if you're only given budget for labor, how do you pay for it?
Don't we have a fee on top of? I actually think that has been done in the past because.
We definitely charge for the utilization of the
Yeah,
lights, but
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. And if I'm thinking back with Doreen, I seem to recall.
But I have a
discussing-
question, like those field fees, do they go to DPW for mowing and maintenance?
Well, that's the thing, my hope, and I should check this admittedly, it should be taken out of that grass field revolving.
Right.
Yeah,
Grass field maintenance account.
Yeah, the general fund or something like that, right?
Yeah, we can pay with it for the revolving fund.
For the
Programs
revolving,
aren't
yeah, we
using
wouldn't
it.
be able to.
It's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because same with the portalets, I think DPW was picking up most of them, and slowly they were heading our way.
See those are used for, oh, okay. Those are definitely used beyond our programs, but they're situated near programs. I can get a little history on that. I'm happy to take that one. So those were the objectives. I'm sorry, those were the objectives of 2016. I misspoke. I need to move your heads. And then this is what they're adding to that, or started to. So breaking down goal number 1 into objectives, they've actually rewritten it. The community's needs for sufficient active recreational facilities and infrastructure are met. Okay, yeah. I thought they were saying, oh, they're met, we're all set. So the first objective is new residential development includes funds for recreational facilities. Tim, is that pretty common? It feels like it is becoming common, at least in regards to open space. Do you see that from your experience happening with recreation facilities too?
In what sense? What do you mean? Like developers coming in and there's a portion goes to us? What? I don't understand the question, I guess.
Well, I do know like when developers come in, they typically allocate, often they'll allocate a piece of the land that they purchased for open space, although
Yeah.
often it's not very accessible or usable open space, but they do. So do we want to try to move to see if we can also request funds towards recreation facilities, because presumably they'll be increasing the population of the town and therefore increasing the demand on our facilities? And I'd actually be supportive of this if it is. I think my one thing is this, I'm guessing because it's here, this is something that's done and we just don't do it.
It's extremely common. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
I
in
mean,
that case,
isn't that what happened with Calander?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm definitely supportive of that one.
Yep.
Is anyone not?
Nope.
Nope.
Supportive. Yeah.
All right, the use of existing active recreation fields, including school facilities, is documented, updated, and published regularly. I think that's complete.
Yeah, I think we do that anyways.
Yep. Hi, that scared him away.
Yep.
I always say being on my webcam is like kryptonite to the kids because they won't come near me during the day. Multi-use trail and sidewalk systems satisfy the community's walking and biking needs. I mean, I think this obviously overlap. This is where our overlap starts with the trails committee. I think, again, to a certain degree, I think you have a good partnership already with that committee, but maybe just, do we want to change that in any way, contribute more? And biking needs is a little tricky because I feel like that's a bit out of our hands.
Yeah.
Same with the walking, and like I know sidewalks has always been a hot topic too, as to requesting them for different streets, but
That's
Yeah.
kind of, it's kind of out of our scope.
Yeah.
So,
So what about trails?
I mean, I think trails are doing a phenomenal job
Yeah.
with
They really
how
are.
they're functioning already. It's really incredible. So
How do we allocate? I know we've allocated some funds to them before. I don't know if that's out of the general fund or the revolving fund. How does that work?
comes out of revolving. They put forth since I've been here, I've asked them beginning of the fiscal year what their anticipated costs are, and that kind of give them permission based off of that. It's hovered around about $2,500, and that is for mainly signage and trail maintenance that they need. There's a couple conferences that the committee attends, but they've been asking to get a line in our actual budget, but it being such short money and something that we traditionally recoup pretty quickly, it's just come out of revolving.
I'm sorry, just gotta get my
Properly.
charger here.
So
yeah, they're also funded through like grants and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and a lot of projects through the scouts and stuff like that as well. So
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So it kind of sounds like the objective would be to continue, like maintain essentially.
Yeah, I think maintain and continue to support. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just plugging in here. Sidewalks, oh, here we go again. Sidewalks and trails connect across the Sudbury Reservoir and Route 9. Sidewalks and trails connect to adjacent municipal and regional trail networks. Hey, we've already discussed the sidewalks aspect of it.
And same with
That seems
walking
like-
trails, though. I mean, it's in progress. I mean, they just
Yeah.
opened that whole other strip of it, so it's pretty significant when you look at it, what we actually have. So it's almost like that's been addressed and is continually being addressed.
So I think that just gets combined with the prior item with the notion that we continue to support the ongoing work.
Yep.
New active recreational facilities as determined through a need assessment based on existing and projected recreational use data and community input are cited appropriately and funded.
And does that go back to the want for an indoor That's kind of how I read that.
Or is that kind of like lack of satisfaction with the data that was put forward for our most recent round of projects? You could read a little into that, I guess. But,
I mean, like, I think there was a huge needs assessment and study done and
Yeah.
surveys and a lot of data of the usage. So I think like that was there, but I could read this as like, if we're looking for more fields or more, like, then it'd be expected again.
yeah, which begs a good question. How many years has it been since
Yep.
that
Field
study? I mean, in the next 10 years, we should probably have another one done, right?
Yeah.
I'm
Sure.
struggling to recall what we call I'm trying to think of what the title of that document. I can't believe I can't remember, given we lived and breathed it for so long.
It was a facility study, wasn't it?
Facility study, thank you. Yeah. There was
This
something
one?
else in there too.
This big one?
Yes, that one.
That was 2017. So
And how often do you know how, like, what the regular cadence is?
5 to 10.
Okay.
Usually, yeah.
So I think E is fine as noted. Any changes to the word?
Admittedly, though, I think it's important to note that we've addressed
I just want to say we've done most of it.
almost all of it
Yeah,
to date. So it could be sooner than later that we could get another master plan study, which would be wonderful. I mean,
yeah. I would want to do it knowing whether or not Park Central is going to go forward, because that could be a game changer.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of those fields were built, you know, they said initially because there was an expected increase in the youth population. And so that's why a lot of the fields weren't built necessarily up to spec. So if Park Central goes in, we might find ourselves in a similar, I don't know what the impact would be. That's why it'd be interesting to have a study at that point in time.
Mhm.
So that's just a side note. And hopefully if we do it, we should have a clearer understanding if that's going to come to reality or not.
Mhm.
Okay, so specific recommendations from an enhanced sense of community section. So of course, like a lot of these things do overlap. A single facility or linkage between multiple facilities. I think we just have to, well, actually, I mean, a single recreational facility we've already talked about. I'd be a little wary of the word single. Linkage between multiple facilities. If we talked about that in the last call, I don't recall what that means.
I guess I think, you know, hypothetically, if Woodward went offline, because that's always what people are talking about, you know, or Neary, if we were moved down there, we would have DePetrie, the tennis courts, the side field, the main
Got it.
field, Trotter up the road. So it would kind of create a complex.
Got it.
And
You could say
same with
this-
Woodward.
Yeah, you could say the same thing about Woodward.
Yeah.
If that became town facility with a gym, with fields in the front, the whole, you'd have a,
Yeah.
you know, you'd have a sort of core.
Playground in the back, trail access in the back.
Yep.
And then that would justify turf, I think, down there,
Mhm.
so on and so forth.
You have Main Street redone, the whole thing.
Yep. Senior center across the street, everything. Yeah.
All right. So I might wordsmith that one just a little bit.
Safety center, golf, the whole thing. That's the,
Yeah.
It's ideal. That's the ideal spot.
Okay. So I think I'll just expand upon that one in particular. Let's just break this one down one at a time. Theater. I mean,
Like the need?
yeah, I mean, maybe this is that. So there's Trotter has an auditorium. We use it with Sky.
Yep.
And we do
Skyrise.
have access with Skyrise. So do we feel that that's sufficient? Are we lacking in that type of space?
No, 'cause outside of that's the only user we have, so it's not like
Yeah.
we're flooded. So that's and the school's been very generous with it. So I think that
Right,
that functions properly. Yeah.
right.
I think
And
the other
there's-
thing to add there is like, I don't think they come through rec, but they do go through like the arts is the, like the performers and the like singers and bands and stuff like that, they don't typically rent through rec, do they?
For what?
For like the holiday concerts and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
no, that's
No?
not, no, we just
So
do
I
something.
know they go through like St. Mark's frequently to have them there, or sometimes they'll be at the churches as well.
Okay.
But that might just be an audience that we've never tapped into. So
So, but let's be realistic, like in the next 5 to 10 years, do we think we haven't agreed to try to tap into there yet. So is that one of our objectives, to tap into those groups
I
in
think
that case?
I think that could pile onto this question of like the schools. Like if
Right.
they really do combine down like 2 to 1 and invest in a new school building, then I think that should be part of it, right?
Mhm.
Yep.
I wouldn't see us finding a location outside of a school
Right.
know? that would really get the use that it would warrant.
Yeah. So maybe an objective is just to continue the relationship and the access to the school's facilities, like maintain, again, maintain, like things are good. It's our objective to keep them good.
Yeah,
And if you build a new building, our objective would be for you to ensure that same kind of access.
yep.
All right, meeting rooms.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a need for meeting rooms, but we have, you could wordsmith that one of training rooms, things of that nature.
Mhm.
We look at what we made behind me and the use that got immediately
Mhm.
with, CPR, first aid, babysitting, everything like that. So,
Right.
program rooms or training rooms.
And I think in general the town was in need of space and meeting rooms, but then with the new public safety coming online, I think just the timing with the pandemic, it
Mhm.
probably hasn't seen as much use as it could.
Yeah.
Because I know they have space there that the public can use.
Again, this is for the enhanced sense of community. So obviously there must be some demand that was voiced, and if this is a logical place to put it, I'm fine with that. Just rewording from meeting, perhaps.
Yeah, meeting slash training, I
Yeah.
think.
Or even like the local groups, like you think about like the Boy Scouts, Kristen, like I know our
Yes.
husbands are calling around to like the pizza place. Can we meet upstairs for
Yeah.
free and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So maybe it's more accessibility to local groups as well.
Yeah, because the Girl Scouts actually stopped allowing the use of the school, at Woodward at least. And so people were forced to go to their houses or what have you. So yeah, definitely.
Tell them to call us. We have all upstairs.
Oh, it's not happening right now.
No.
Girl Scouts made it really difficult to be a Girl Scout.
Yeah.
Sports facilities, recreational fields, we already talked about. And open spaces. I mean, I just got to ask on the administrative side of things, open space has their own section here. So if this is just that I do think we want to partner more with them, because I think we talked about it in that meeting, there's two people, and somebody actually approached me at soccer about this as well. The 2 parcels of land that's always of interest. And I know we've been told that one is too wet, but that decision was kind of made a little bit in a vacuum from what I understand. There's the Stony Brook Golf Course piece of property that was offered to the town at one point in time prior to being sold.
Is that by Flander?
Yes.
Okay.
I know from the seller that the town was given first dibs on that piece of property for a pretty reasonable price. Whatever happened, that's water under the bridge. But I do think we need to partner with open space and trails as potential pieces of property come up. The other one is oh my gosh, having senior moments left and right.
There's a
these days.
farm, right?
The farm, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why I can't think of the name of it, where the little farm stand used to be, kind of near the Fay Fields, heading towards the Fay Fields in Marlborough. So the point just being that we should be collaborating with them as parcels of land may or may not become free.
Yep.
Continuous improvements to and additional use of the golf course. Continued improvements to is a little
Yeah, I think that's outside our scope. I mean, it's under a
Yeah.
management company. So, I mean, our hands are kind of clean to that one. And financially, it's working for the town. They're getting a benefit to it. I did kind of, ask, is there any plans of that ever coming underneath us as a town rec facility? And I think just because the management company is working out so well and the town is getting a good return, I don't think that would be under our, umbrella of something we would need to look at.
Does rec get time on the golf course?
If we asked, we've never asked. I mean, it's, at least since I've been here, it hasn't really been open because of all the construction and then everything shut down. We had plans to do a senior league they wanted to do with us, and we were going to move our lessons from whatever the one, Juniper
Northbrook,
Hills, we
right?
were
Yeah.
going to move there and stuff, but then everything shut down. So
Okay. Yeah, actually, because that's the only reason I've never taken part in the rec golf. I want to do it, and it's just a little bit too far. So,
Mhm.
Continuous improvements to and additional use. Continuous improvements to the golf course as outlined in the improvement provided in the golf. Okay, so I think we all agree on that one. That doesn't feel like that belongs in rec because we have zero control on that one.
did that committee disband, or is that still around? Do we know?
I'm pretty sure they disbanded it.
Yeah.
I thought that-
I can get the argument. I think so too. I can get the argument of why, like, we're kind of looking at this as a recreation department and commission, but if this is supposed to be holistic of all things recreation, even if it doesn't fall under the rec department, then I can see its home here. We just need to clarify that the rec department itself does not intend to pursue these things, but if as a community, as a recreation goal, we want that out there, that's fine. And I just think I just got to clarify that with the master plan committee if we're thinking about that correctly.
Yeah, and these fit under the goal one objective, like what's written there, that makes sense. It is just a clarification of who's responsible to pursue these goals.
Exactly. And just making sure we're not signing up for something that, again, wouldn't be under our remit. Somebody put not sure what is meant by additional use of golf course.
Conservation restriction on the golf course.
I can't slide any more over. Make it a little smaller.
Maybe they think of outside usage, like if we were to do a community event there or something like that.
Like local programming or.
Yeah.
Okay.
Side
right,
note, selectmen just approved calendar, so.
Yay.
Awesome.
I actually, I've gotten like 2 or 3 questions, obviously, I think because of what happened at the field. So calendar's just not being used. It's offline again.
Right, yeah, it's just not draining, it's just puddled, so it's pretty bad. Next couple days, it's gonna put it back under, so.
Got it. So between what we discussed with Tim and what we've discussed here, I think the major thing that I'm bringing back to the committee is that we actually don't agree with the pool. Again, I think it'll get into an interesting discussion on how this section is supposed to be crafted, but for now, I'm going to leave it out. Are there any gaping holes that we haven't talked about? This is, this is going to be iterative. I don't know how quickly. I think we'll have at least another go of it because they're obviously going to have feedback for us as well.
So we didn't really dive into the community center piece of it. Do we want to talk specifics, or is it more of a general, yes, we support it? Like do we want to say, well, we want a walking track inside with a gym?
I think we should expand it on what we would want in that facility. I specifics can never hurt, right?
Yeah.
So like how many, do we even have a sense of how many gyms? I thought we did, actually,
We did. You guys did.
we
a study.
did. Yeah, we
When I
did.
first joined, you guys had some sort of study.
Yep. Good luck. I'm gonna find the, yeah, they did get into some specifics of what, I mean, they even got like a high level cost estimate, I think.
Yeah, you had like a proposed floor plan and everything.
Yeah. Not that we would put that in there, but we could lift, what the thought process was in terms of what was needed.
There's a really nice one in Natick. I
Yeah,
don't know if is it the senior center, Tim, or is it a community center? They've got like a gym on one side and they have like a stretcher stuff on the other. It's right, on that main drag, not far from
Yep.
the fire station and the whole thing. That has a nice footprint.
Natick
Where
has
is it?
one. It's
It's right on
a
one-
senior center. It's a joint.
It's a senior
yeah.
center, yeah. That's what we need. We need a senior center with a basketball court. That's a perfect dual use.
Randolph has a gorgeous one that they just built. I know it's a bigger town. Lexington obviously has a massive one.
Lexington has that. Isn't that all funded by? Is Lexington the one that has like a whole third party that funds their recreation building? I feel like we met somebody during the interview process.
I think it's an enterprise account on their community center.
Hmm.
But I know it's massive. But I mean, when I think of an indoor space, I think I think it's no secret the seniors are looking for a bigger spot. So I think that if we were to do a community center, I think we go down that trend of multi-generational center so that the seniors are included in it to meet their needs, especially the active population of seniors we have in this town.
Mhm.
You touched on it earlier. We're so reliant on the schools that it's great because they partner with us, but at the same time, it does cost us a good amount of money just because of custodial fees and working around their blackout schedules of their functions.
And it
Sure.
prevents us from things like the times when we most need that type of access, not most need, but during school vacations.
Well, school vacation, it disrupts occasionally our programs that are going on, like Skyrise with the blackout dates, with the holiday weekends, with like you said, the vacation weeks.
But then even just like during the day, it's extremely limited indoor space for daytime programming for anything.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, we can't do anything until 3:00, 3:30. We're blacked out pretty much the entire day, and having that indoor space with a gym or just with adequate program rooms and spaces for exercise classes and things of that nature, a walking track for I think I just toured the Randolph one most recently, so that's why it's in my head. But they had the big gym with a walking track on top, so it's a year-round spot for seniors and for people, just residents in general.
Is it, when you say walking track, I mean, can you jog on it too? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That might be a dumb question, but.
No, just a suspended one above.
Yeah. All right, well, I think I can just should I just say multiple courts? I mean, again, if they're ever gonna do this, they'd have to do a study to justify how many courts we need. I mean, who knows? So I just think one court might be a little limiting.
I think ideally we would want something like Finn or Trotter that it's large, you could divide it.
Yeah.
I think anything beyond that would be excessive.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I think we would still utilize all the schools we would need to,
right,
because of the sheer amount of kids. But this would alleviate some of the more pressing for tournaments or overflow or something outside of our normal scope.
Are we looking for indoor turf? Or is that pushing it?
We got a bubble.
Yeah. Just kidding. All right. Well, I'll expand on that one a little bit as well. So rather than, draw this out this evening, I would say there's no reason why, if you think of something on your own, to just shoot it over to me and I can include it in the draft. I don't think you can send it to everybody. Well, you could send it to everybody. We just can't comment on it. So whichever works.
Right.
And then, prior to hanging up today, I'd ask, let me double check when that meeting is. I'm fairly certain it's the 17th. And I'd request that we get together before that.
So we had actually already scheduled a meeting for November 10th at 6 o'clock.
Perfect.
So,
All right, and I don't have to look up the meeting date 'cause it's definitely not then. So, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to close that. Anything else on this prior to moving on? Okay. This is good. I think there'll be,
well, actually, just what the timing is of this, like when will this be completed or when are they bringing it for review?
don't quote me on this, but I think the goal is to have something in front of the selectmen this year.
Okay.
I'll get more specifics for you for the 10th,
Curious. Yeah.
but everybody should be reviewing it with, at this point, it's at the point, you know, we're a step or two behind other areas. So at this point, people should be reviewing it with their, you know, they're at that kind of, I think, final review point.
Okay.
And like I said, the last meeting I went to, we did the reconciliation of anything that was in the earlier plan that was not in this and discussed each. So that we're kind of at that stage.
Okay.
So that's all I have.
Okay. So I feel like we've discussed a ton. I think the question is do we need to plot this against, like, what are we gonna do the rest of this year versus next year, or start putting these against a timeline, or?
I'd suggest that I summarize everything. I'll organize it probably in a different format than this, just for purposes of our review. And then that would be a worthy goal, just having it all organized in front of us to do a bit of prioritization. And to your point, what do we want to pursue immediately? I think Tim's got, right, some of the more short-term
Yep.
immediate items. So maybe we can kind of bucket them in that way. I can present it in that way as well. And I'll take a stab at it. When I'm doing it, I'll kind of try to do that because, you know, gut feel, you know, some of these things Tim can do next year, some of these things we have to wait for town meetings, you know, so I'll
Yeah.
kind of try to do that immediate, you know, 2 to 5 year, 5 to 10 year view when I do it. And then we can shuffle things around in that call and then finalize it, vote to finalize it.
Yeah, I mean, because I mean, realistically too, when it comes to what we have on the table, I mean, we're still, you know, 6 to 8 months out, probably 6 months maybe, before we really, you know, if all goes to plan, get the lights up and running and done. And same, and then, you know, Calander will hit in July, and then next summer, fall, the Calander project will be done. So if we're looking to take on, you know, additional large scale capital, one, you're right, we gotta go to town meeting, but also, you know, we'll still have our hands full. I think easily.
Right, but I guess, like,
next year.
if we're looking to fund something for like next fall, we'd have to be getting it into the capital planning committee meeting now to get onto town meeting, right?
Yeah.
So that's why
Like-
like the one thing I wonder is the question around we talked about doing the feasibility study for turf. Cause that would cost like, what, 20 to 40,000?
If
I think
that,
I was gonna say it's probably, you know, depending on what it is you're looking for, we would obviously want to keep it. We talked about basically a couple things, right? The first thing would be is just getting someone to give us the proper measurements. We've all sort of done, I've walked it, I've looked at what's in the one of the deficiencies in the plan. So a future thing, Tim, if we ever do another one of those studies, they need to give us sort of proper measurements of the parcels that we have. Like, just we should have that. And that's frustrating because I've done the thing with the satellite pictures in my ruler, and I've tried to figure it all out, and it's not effective.
yeah.
So what we really need is we need someone who can just go out there, whether it's a drone study or whatever, and say, look, here's where the light towers are. Here's what it looks like, and give us sort of as is. And then maybe something that's a little bit like, what happens if you can grab a few feet from the parking lot, and what happens, you know, here, there, or whatever. That we critically need. After you have that, then the next thing we talked about, and Kristen and I sort of heard this loud and clear from our investigations last year, specifically with, I think, Shrewsbury, you need to get to some sort of a conceptual drawing if you want to have any chance of drumming up interest from either a sponsorship or a donation or whatever it is. And so that element is critical just to be able to flesh out what your level of interest would be. And then that helps you figure out what your potential outside funding sources may look like. And then that helps you get to the point where you say, what do you actually need from the town? And in this case here, it may not be as much financial as it might be other things, whether it's the ability to use the land a little differently or whatever it might be. But you got to get, we have to have that sort of assessment to be able to come back to the town with well, what do you want? Or what do you need?
Yeah.
Or what are we asking for?
Yeah. So do we want a feasibility across the entire town to find the best spot? Or are we pretty hell bent on Woodward because of the lights, right?
I think
Yeah.
it's yeah.
Ideal.
I think the feasibility came back, with, without thinking about the lights. It came back and said, "Wow, you have a really big piece of land at Neary," and obviously there's challenges with that. The secondary location is Woodward, but they didn't really put in any additional measurements or the like. So that's what we're lacking
Yeah.
is sort of again, I say the art of the possible, but like what could and we've done some of the homework, like we know, and obviously we've talked to, Art and the whole thing. And so it really comes down to, Tim, like, what could you fit there? And what is and does it make sense? And then that's pretty black and white. And it may come back, like I said, it may come back and say, hey, if you actually move the parking lot over to where the drainage issue is, and you grab some of the parking lot for land, there could be some things that you could do. So whoever we would engage, I'd want them to give us something on an as-is basis and something as in like sort of what if you could dream? And
Aspirational.
Yeah, exactly. What if you could use the part? Like, I know it's multiple parcels there, but if you could find a way to get consensus to realign the parcels, especially if it's a part of a bigger community effort to create a centralized hub, then maybe you could, and that might be what we need from the town, and then we go find more of the money from elsewhere.
Yeah. The lights are just so critical. I mean, I would suggest that we do, like, let's get our placeholder. We can always take it out. None of us know what the heck it's going to, the next 6 months is going to look like, much less, by the time we get to town meeting next year. So maybe we people consider this, and this is something we vote on as well when we meet in early November, but I'd prefer to get it out there and then see what the lay of the land is and always be able to take it out. Because to Jen's point, it takes much time to even get the funding freed up.
And there's no person that we've talked to. I know personally, I'm pretty sure you've run into the same experience. There's nobody who would ever, in their right mind, say, invest in such a project without lights.
Yeah.
So it's
just
not. It's not worth. It's just not. It would be irresponsible for us to try to, I think, push something like that.
Yeah.
Is this something that you would want me to maybe approach Art about to get a number? Is it something you want me to approach him about to say, hey, would you be willing to do it? What's your price? Like, because I know it's something he does. And,
Yeah, so it was a previous company name, but he did the original feasibility study with PAR, I believe it was.
Okay.
I would think we might need to try someone else just because we've got his assessment, right?
I don't think they did the
They didn't do a full design. Yeah.
No.
So he came back in and had a session with us so we could ask him a bunch of questions. So we talked to him through ideas, but yeah, we never officially did it. So I think it would be helpful to ask Art just for a quote, like what would it take to draw this up like we've discussed so that we have something like credible that we can start having these conversations with. Because that number would be the one I'd want to be able to give to capital planning, let them know this is what we'd like to be able to do next fall. Like start these evaluations next fall so that we can have these conversations.
Yep,
Yeah, and Joe's another resource in town
Yep,
too.
exactly. Joe was really good with us.
yep.
Yeah, and then the only other item, and I guess that's dependent on what we decide, is for the Finn Court renovation. I think at one point we thought maybe we could use the revolving and put a program there, but you know, the revolving fund's taking a hit. And so if, you know, it's one thing, it depends what we decide we want to do there, how, if we're going to convert it to basketball at this point, that point, we probably do need to consider requesting for funding or go to CPC.
I was gonna say,
But-
that's a home run with CPC, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I also take to heart the comment you made earlier, Tim, about, you know, from a pandemically focused or pandemically impacted point of view, you know, tennis is probably picking up in demand. Certainly, I think pickleball fits in there too. So
Mhm.
maybe we need to just think about, and it doesn't require probably as much investment as it would to do basketball. So maybe there's a short term, get the field back in play for something.
Yes.
And then there's a long term, you know, reevaluate. I mean, I know we've done the evaluation. We believe, I think the basketball court is what was sort of the consensus, but maybe there's a short term, let's just get the field in play
Yeah.
without, you know, a bunch of money, and then, you know, reevaluate down the road.
How's the condition of the asphalt? Like, does it need to be?
It's passable. I mean, it's not perfect.
It's not the US Open.
No, unfortunately, a little underneath it. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's got a
That'd be
crack
fine.
one right down the middle, but it's, you know, the other one does too, and it works fine. So, you know, it's not, nothing's heaving, nothing is
It's
causing
not
me
liability.
exactly of concern putting people on that. So,
That makes sense.
Mhm.
My son played tennis for the first time the other day, so. All right.
Heat it up, it's no good.
all right.
Jen, I don't know if you wanted to give us a quick update on, because this would be the appropriate, perfect time for needing it, on document sharing. I thought you said you had some sort of update on how we could do that.
Oh, so well, actually, I mean, because watching the the group that you're on here, the master planning committee is having a public drive and they're using it, they can. So I think we could do the same thing and publish a link on our town site, do the same thing, which would make this easier. I had spoken with the town clerk just to clarify some of the open meeting laws. Like, yes, we can share these documents if they're public links,
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So as long as we find ways to publish them, which I believe we can edit the content on our little part of the town website anyways. So we could post links there to our publicly shared
That's
documents.
exactly what the master plan, you can go out to the master plan committee and see that's exactly what they've done.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
That's just gonna make this a lot
Yep.
easier.
Yep. I agree.
Anything else?
Nope.
So did we just decide now to have Tim throw a tennis? Like,
I'll do it tomorrow.
Can you hit that on the way home?
There you go. Quick win.
Just the post in the net. The
Yep.
center hole's already there. So
Awesome.
Do we have to vote on that, or? 'Cause it's
well, let
gonna cost
me see how much it would be first before we
Okay,
get too ahead of ourselves.
that would make sense. I got excited for the quick win.
Okay. So then I guess, for the capital planning committee, like they're gonna want information. I think for them, like some of the biggest thing would be for this feasibility study for turf for next fall. They also want to see things even if they're coming out of our revolving, any bigger ticket items, right, Tim?
Yeah.
So like, that's where like the van, like I wonder if the van is something we plan for like a spring purchase to have it geared up and ready to go for spring or summer programming. assuming
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
online.
personally, I mean, granted, I think we know we have enough in there, we could do it. But at the same time, I think we want to keep an eye. I don't want to get over rambunctious with it just because we're
Right,
taking.
but then we could also put it out there publicly so people realize that we are spending revolving funds on
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's a great use of it. I
Yep.
just want to make sure it's the right time, granted, everything going on.
Yep. Okay.
So wait, Jen, we're agreeing, we'll put it out there, but kind of conditionally to see where we are in the
Yeah, and
spring.
we're not being held to any of this. It was
Yeah.
more of a, like our 5-year capital items have expired. So being able to give some of that high level guidance to them. And unlike before, they would like to see what we're spending for big ticket items out of revolving as well. So like the van purchase is one thing they called out they would like to be able to have visibility into, even though it's coming out of, it's self-funded. So,
Makes sense.
okay.
I'm gonna stop sharing.
All right. Was there anything else anyone wanted to raise then, or?
Yeah.
So then for the November 10th meeting, Kristen, you'll share around an updated version of your doc there. Okay.
And Jen, we don't need to re-vote on it, but I sent you the dates, or not the dates, the times we opened and closed, adjourned for the August
Oh,
meeting
gotcha.
minutes.
Meeting.
I couldn't, the document that, I couldn't open the document because it's on a different computer that's in use right now.
Okay.
But so I just shot you the dates if that's okay, if you wouldn't mind, or I can get it to you tomorrow.
Yep.
but-
I can update those and get that in.
We did vote with that planned amendment, so we don't need to do it again.
Okay. Okay. So I guess I'll make a motion to adjourn at 7:54.
Oh, sorry, one last point. I would assume that Jen, I'll take the meeting minute responsibility because I think our updated document is kind of a large part of that meeting minutes. Obviously, we talked about a few other things, so I'll make note of that.
I've got notes here I can share with you.
Okay. Okay, great.
And just a reminder, we have planning board on Monday, if you all are planning to show up.
Yeah.
I have some information on it. I'll just email you all, just to give you a heads up of what it's gonna look like on Monday.
My comments till then.
And I sent in the stuff tonight, so that if we're covered, we're planning as a joint meeting just in case.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah,
Alright.
Kristen, there was no actual letter from ADA. Just to answer that, there was an email that was sent. And that's what stemmed from me and Karen going down to Finn today. So that's a non-issue. We'll address it. That's a non-issue.
Okay, great. I assume baseball's on board.
Oh, they'll be there.
Goes without saying.
Good. All right, so I'll try that again.
I second your motion.
Okay.
Laval,
Dumont, yes.
Laval, yes.
Nixon, yes.
All right, Hanson, yes. All right, so we'll see you Monday night for planning, and then November 10th at 6 o'clock for our next meeting.
Cool.
Great. Thank you, guys.
All right,
Thank
thanks,
you.
guys. Good night.
Good one.
Night, everyone.